Welcome to CISO's Insiders Podcast, powered by GRC Consulting. In this podcast, we'll be interviewing leading CISOs and security leaders in the industry for light, eye-level conversations. Here, they share advice and tips, talk about their biggest accomplishments and failures, favorite drinks, key influencers, and much more. We encourage you to walk away with at least one insight that will help you better yourself or your business. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more content, please check us out on social media.
Welcome, everybody. Today we'll be speaking with Steve Cobb. Steve Cobb is the Chief Information Security Officer of OneSource Communications. He's been in that role 7 years. And looking at your bio here, I see that you came a long way, from back in 1995, where you actually, I think you owned your own company. I believe it was in the IT space, and then you took a bunch of positions along the way, project management, consultant, supervisor, senior network engineer, and so on, before you landed your current position in OneSource Communication. Did you want to jump in and introduce yourself?
Sure, I will. As you mentioned, my name is Steve Cobb. I'm located on the East Coast in the state of North Carolina. I've been in IT/security for 30 plus years now. I actually started my own company out of college, IT consulting business that grew pretty successfully and decided wanted to move into an enterprise space. So I sold out of that business and went to work for several organizations, as you mentioned, doing enterprise type roles, learning kind of on the job as I went, and growing in my foundations of IT and security from working on the job. When you're your own boss and you're trying to make a buck doing IT and consulting and stuff, you learn a lot in a short period of time, because a lot of times you're asked to do a lot. So anyway, I was asked to come and start a IT and security consulting business, essentially an MSSP with OneSource. OneSource has been around for 27 years, so they had a good foundational base. They had customers that were starting to ask them to help with IT and security needs, and so I was brought in to kind of build that business and run that space. And we've had double, triple-digit growth year over year since inception. So doing really well there. But most of all, we're helping protect and defend clients and get them to a better space, show them value, that sort of thing.
Okay, great, and thank you for that introduction. So just from my benefit, so OneSource is an MSP and MSSP, you said?
Correct.
Okay, so you provide like turnkey solutions for specific niches in the market, or?
Well, we're pretty broad. I mean, we've got a lot of niches and verticals, like quick serve restaurants and fast foods, where they need a combination of managed IT and managed security to meet, let's say, PCI DSS requirements, but also someone to manage firewalls and switches at 3,000 restaurants, let's say. So we have quite a few businesses that way. The core offering for OneSource has been communication lifecycle management. You can think of that as managing the communications piece of an organization, whether it's wireline, wireless, cellular. We manage all that: contract management, help desk support, bill pay, all that sort of thing. And those customers that we provided that for, as the communication space has bled into IP and IT, more and more have asked, they've got needs around the IT management and security. And more of these businesses that have been around for a while are now faced with challenges. Everything's going on the internet. They got to change how they do communications. And 5-10 years ago, communications from a branch of a bank could run over 56K baud modem. Now you've got to have a 5 or 10 meg connection, and everything's in the cloud. And so that's a whole new world for a lot of these businesses. And that's where we can come in and provide some expertise, turnkey, if you will, from communications to the IT management of what they need on the back end, infrastructure, all those sorts of things, cloud management. And then the overlay, really our focus is security, to make sure we're doing it all in a way that we can protect and defend our clients.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thanks for that.
Yes, sir.
And before we dive into the questions, I'd like to ask you a couple of icebreaker questions here.
Sure.
Can you share anything about your marital status and then your favorite drink?
Sure. I'm married. Been married for 28 years this year. My wife and I have 3 children who are all, I'll say, I'm air quotes, grown here. They're in college or a higher form of learning. So I've got one that just graduated law school who will be taking a bar this year. I've got another one that's in a master's program for public health, and another one who's a freshman in college. So we are empty nesters, I guess you'd say. Our kids are out of the house as much as they can be, out of the house, but not out of the pocketbook, I guess is the way we look at it. But yeah, so we are just happily married and will continue to be so for a while, I hope.
Okay. Hope
And
so.
then
Yeah,
favorite drink, I'm not really a big drinker, but I do love ginger ale, and I like the ginger ale that's spicy. You've probably seen some of the brands now that come out with spicy ginger ale, so it's a little bit of take your breath away type of ginger ale. I enjoy those, and I'd say if I had my choice, that's probably what I would drink.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah,
Diving right in, if there's one thing you wish you'd known before you began your career, what would that be?
I think starting my own business, being an entrepreneur out of the gate, and some of those behaviors I learned then carried over even today. But I think if starting all over, I had known to surround myself with the people that could complement me. My strengths are their weaknesses, their strengths are my weaknesses, and surround myself with those kind of people that could help me build my skill set, knowledge faster. I think I could have gotten further faster. So what I mean by that is, for the time I was an entrepreneur and consulting, I actually brought partners on and we expanded and got to be a sizable business, but I still was kind of, I guess, Superman, trying to wear the cape and do everything myself. And the downside of that is it's lonely. And 2, it's a lot harder to learn those things on your own sometimes than it is just learning from somebody who's already done it and share those experiences. So I think, collaboration with the right people is important to understand early in your career and align yourself with those kind of folks. It can drive your career faster and further, most definitely.
Yeah, but that's given you trust the individual that you're surrounding yourself with, right?
Without a doubt. Yeah, you have to be, that can't be an open-ended invitation for collaboration with folks, because not everybody's got your best interest, and not everybody is working toward the same goal you are. So yeah, you've got to make sure that you're aligned with that person, that somebody you can trust. And I do think it makes sense to have a personal relationship with that person. I think it adds a extra amount of accountability than just being in a business relationship. So a lot of people probably think the opposite of that. I've been in both spaces. I've been in both places where business peers were, just business peers. Nothing happened outside of work. Also, business peers that were personal friends, where we collaborate, or we hung out after work or outside of work and those sorts of things. And without a doubt, the relationships where you have both professional and personal relationships with folks are much stronger, in my experience, than isolation in either one of those.
Mm-hmm. And looking back, would you do you have any recollections of what you perceive to be your biggest failure, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I think probably, as I think about biggest failure, it has to do with that entrepreneurial business I mentioned, and it ties right in, Ben, with the discussion we just had, aligning myself maybe with folks who did not have the same interest that I did. And so I think, making sure that you are aligned with those folks, that's probably the biggest failure. It pushed me to a place where I got out of my business that I started and went. Now, don't get me wrong. It turned out great for me because I got some enterprise experience and worked with some really great companies like Microsoft and other companies. I really enjoyed it. It pushed me in a direction I probably needed to go anyway. But as I look back and think about it, there's a lot that business could have been and could be today. After you mentioned 95, I actually started in 1993, and in 1995 is kind of when it kind of exploded, and I brought partners in and things. And so I think, from looking back on it, having that much time and effort in a business is probably one of the things I regret the most that I see.
Okay. And having touched about that, what would you consider your biggest accomplishment then?
I think it's probably not one point in time. Biggest accomplishment probably is starting to turn a focus to security early on. In the early days of IT, back when you had the I love you virus and viruses were attached to USB drives that people sneakernetted around. That's how you kind of try to your viruses got transmitted, or either they're the old school, as mentioned, I love you virus, that were the first original email viruses. I took a keen interest in those early on, and I think it helped propel my career throughout, because in everything, although a lot of IT and infrastructure kind of focused for my background, security was always there. Something intrigued me. I did security on my own time. That was my passion, right? I did that outside of work. At work, there was a lot of IT and infrastructure focused activities with security overlay, but I'd go, participate in some CTFs and hacking pieces, ethical hacking environments and things like that on my own time, just because I liked it so much. And so accomplishment was, I think, making sure I had a direction towards security early on really played a big role for me.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so basically, I mean, the move into the security space that resulted from, your previous experiences as an IT founder of an IT consulting company. Yeah, I mean, and just to make sure I fully understand. So you grew up out of the IT space, so I'm assuming your first touches with security and cybersecurity, it wasn't called cybersecurity back then, but with information security,
right.
yeah, with information security, were around probably like the network space, operating system, less in the realms of like development, SDLC.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, without a doubt, that's really where I kind of earn my chops and where I still am most comfortable. So we play in the application space, the secure software development, and all that space as well. But my roots are, network security, OS, malware, reverse engineering, those sorts of things. That's kind of my core, my root. And if I have an opportunity, that's where I'll default back to all the time. When I want to play or go do things, I enjoy that much more than trying to look through code and look for, for instance, bug bounties and things like that are great. There's people who have the minds to think like that. I don't have a mind. My mind is not geared that way. So looking through code to find exploits is not a huge driver for me.
Yeah. Okay. Now, if there are any listeners out there that are just beginning their career in the space, whatever you want to call it, cybersecurity or information security, and considering you've been around the block, you've spent some years in this space. Is there any piece of advice or any sort of mentorship type of advice you wanted to give out to them if they wanted to pursue a career in our space?
I would say that you got to be, figure out what it is. Figure out, do you love it, right? Because I will say the cybersecurity space can be very stressful. It can be chaotic. It can be disappointing at times, honestly. But I think if you have a passion for it and it's something that you love to do, then you will find a way or make a way in order for you to learn the skills you need to learn, gain the knowledge you need to gain, and make the connections with people that you need to make in order to grow your career and get to a place that you're satisfied. There's more so now than ever there's opportunity in the cybersecurity space. I mean, if you look at where we are from a lack of people to fill jobs. So, that how many cybersecurity jobs that are open right now that can't be fulfilled because there's not enough people to go into it. There's more opportunity now than ever for folks. And I'm seeing personally, as I interact with folks, for us, we have a security operations center as part of our security offering. So we've got 2 SOCs that operate 24/7, and we've started an internship program to bring interns through. And more we're seeing some of those people that are in middle age that are changing careers, right? They they worked in healthcare, they worked in financials, or they worked in pharmaceuticals or some other thing, and they've just decided, cybersecurity is really interesting to me. I'm going to change my career and go down that path. There's more opportunity now for that than there's ever been. But I've also seen people who, see cybersecurity as maybe a fast way to an end goal, or a quick buck, or a way to change their lives quickly. And I'll say, if you're not passionate about it and it's not something you want to work for, it'll be a struggle, right? For those people, I mean, it's a struggle anyway, but for those people who really like it or passionate about it, they don't feel that it's a struggle, right? It's just part of the process for them to get there. So that would be my advice for those people who are considering this: is, do you really like it? And what I would say is, go try some. There's opportunities to go attend some. Everything's virtual now, right? So go attend a virtual conference, or go participate in a capture the flag event, or go look at some of the places like Hack the Box or other places where you can go and try some ethical hacking and see if it's something that you're really passionate about, you want to do.
Yep. So in other words, find your passion. And I mean, this space is so vast, so you could,
it really is.
You can pick and choose, as you said, like security operations. You could, these days, like Sec DevOps, compliance.
Compliance, risk management, all those things. Pen testing, red teaming, for those people who like that sort of thing. That's right. It is so vast, so many different areas that you don't have to be, the image of somebody in a basement wearing a hoodie, a black hat, typing on a keyboard in cybersecurity. And you don't have to be on the other side, hand-to-hand combat with that person trying to kick them out. Those are, the blue teamers and the red teamers, those are opportunities that exist. But you're right, there's so vast a space there now, that you almost can make your own niche if you have a passion. I really believe that. There's people who, you can see, Twitter is one of the things that I'd recommend to folks who are interested in the InfoSec community. There's a huge InfoSec community on Twitter. Not all great, but there are a lot of great people that are on there, and you can find people there who've made a life for themselves, doing things they're passionate about, social engineering or other things like that. That people have wrote books and become very successful around just because it's something they love to do.
Yeah, I agree. And coming from the IT space before moving into the security space, do you have any specific thoughts or feelings about the role of a CISO that's actually part of an IT organization? I mean, looking at the market, you see, as you probably know, in some organizations the CISO is a part of the IT organization, where in other organizations the CISO might be a part of the a higher level leadership team, or they might be under the whatever CTO or COO in some cases. Do you have any specific thoughts about CISO and IT?
So I think the CISO has to have a direct link to IT. I mean, in order for an organization to be successful, the CISO at least has to have some visibility and input or feedback to IT operations. Now, I'm not saying they have to be a decision maker, but I do think they need to have a seat at the table when those discussions are happening. If you think about Sec DevOps or what you're doing around cloud migrations and cloud spaces or other infrastructure, the CISO or the security arm of that organization needs to have an overlay there just to validate that things are being performed in a safe and secure manner. I am of the school where I think that the CISO should be not autonomous. They definitely should have accountability, but they shouldn't be under the CTO or an IT organization as part of it. I think in those places where I've seen that, there's overdue pressure that the CISO has to, when they're reporting up through that IT organization, that they have to maybe bend the knee to some practices that may not be best practices, right? I think they need to have a advise and consent type of role, if you will, to those IT organizations so that they can oversee those. As I said, maybe not a decision maker, but they can at least provide some counsel to, this may put us at higher risk than that. It's a choice the business has to make, but at least can advise on that and provide some guidance around it. I see in many places where either the security arm is a just a kind of stepchild of the IT organization. And so the only time they get a say is when an audit comes up and they've got to pull reports and then throw reports back, but they don't have any real operational input. And in those cases, you see a lot of opportunity for compromise, for breach, and risk is tremendously high. So we do a lot of incident response with OneSource. We are brought in a lot of times either during a breach, after a breach, mid-breach. A lot of times our role is to help remediate a situation. Ransomware is the biggest thing right now, where we do ransomware on a weekly basis, unfortunately, it seems like. But in those organizations where we come in, where they've been hitting ransomware, a lot of times that is an indicator that we see that if they had if security had a voice, that voice was, so the volume was turned down so low on that voice that they really had no impact to how the organization was from a security perspective.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and talking about your daily routine and how you came about to your position. Looking back, do you have any tips around the best resources that have helped you along the way, whether that be whatever that might be?
Yeah, well, I'll call out Twitter again, and I say that just because although Twitter may be kind of a more thought of around social media, there's a lot of learning and opportunity to learn around Twitter, especially following the right people. And so I would say, Twitter's a good spot to follow people that can share information that's valuable information that helps learning and knowledge. I think it's a great place to make connections as well. So it can help your career from the standpoint of if you're looking to move into a space or get into a specific area of security, there's probably somebody very knowledgeable on Twitter that you could follow and try to make some kind of connection with. The other thing is just those, as I mentioned before, the InfoSec community is fantastic about offering collaborative, open conferences, capture the flag events, hackathons, all that sort of thing that you can get your foot exposed to, or get your foot in the door. And I would take advantage of those. So, the vendors are famous for, I'm not encouraging anybody to go get on vendor spam lists because the vendors will spam you as much as they can, but a lot of them have pretty good content as well that is agnostic to their product and just around security. So there are a lot, I could name a lot of them. Qualys does it, Cisco does it, CrowdStrike does it, FireEye does it, Mandiant does it. A lot of great information that can raise your game that's free for you to consume. You just got to go look for it. And so that's what I would say a tip is, set aside some time. I do this myself. Set aside some time each week that you're going to spend on professional development for you, for what your passion is. And then find those resources and spend that time. Book it out just like you're going to book out a meeting, right? If you got your calendar full on, Thursdays at 4 o'clock, that's my time to go do some professional development. If you're passionate about it, you'll be like I am, and it's really anytime you've got free time, after hours, whenever it is, you go do it. But if you have to do it during your business day, then book out that time and go do it. But the key is you got to find time to stay ahead. This InfoSec space, the one thing about it is it's always changing. It's not staying the same. It's different from one day to the next. There's new things, new ideas, and new opportunities. You just have to go and find them.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything and by the way, before I ask this question, there's so many I just want to just remember what you just said. There are so many learning opportunities out there, whether so many organizations, whether it's ISACA or ISC2 or what ISSA.
SANS,
so many,
just so many, right.
So many organizations, so many events, so many industry events, and especially now, since COVID with Zoom, a lot of those events are free as well.
Virtual, that's right.
Yeah, some of them, credit you with some CPE points. So, so many learning opportunities. But again, I would also, just to echo what you just said, find your passion and then try to grow.
Yeah, and I'll say again, Ben, too, that there are a lot of local, you think about B-Sides or other InfoSec groups. You mentioned ISSA, all these groups that meet locally in the Bay Area. You've got a bunch of them right in the Bay Area, where these groups that meet once a month and they get together just to share security ideas or security passions, and you can make a lot of great connections there. But you can learn a lot too, because a lot of these folks are, their day jobs are, doing something that you may find interesting and be passionate about. They can give you firsthand knowledge about or experience on. So look and see what's available in your area. And COVID things have gotten soon, but there is a lot of opportunity. I know the B-sides in my area is just starting to meet face-to-face. Our ISSA meeting this month is the first time in 2 years it's been back face-to-face. So things are opening back up where you can get back in face-to-face, meet with people and create some opportunities there. So I encourage people to do that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Is there any common myth about our profession or the cyberspace that you wanted to debunk?
Common myths. Yeah, I guess one of the common myths is that if you work in cybersecurity, if you got family members who think you can hack an ex-boyfriend's or ex-girlfriend's phone, or hack a Facebook page or a Twitter page, or do something like that in order to gain information about someone. So that's not typically everything that a cybersecurity professional does, right? So you get those questions from people that say, oh, this person did me wrong, I want you to get on the Facebook page and hack it and do things like that for them. And so that is not the cybersecurity space. I guess that's the myth, really, is the cybersecurity space is much more than just the hacking, right? The individuals who do, whether it's ethical hacking from a red team perspective, or black hats who are doing this illegally that are criminals. So that is so much of a corner case actually in cybersecurity, that there's so much other opportunity and interesting things to be about. Yeah, those are cool, and they obviously you hear the movies about those, and those are what all the media reports about. But there's a lot of stuff going on in cybersecurity that's really interesting and really valuable. That's not just as I mentioned before, the guy in the hoodie down in the basement banging away on a keyboard trying to break into the DoD network, let's say.
And you're actually not the first one that mentioned that as the myth they wanted to debunk. So,
oh yeah,
it's a common thing.
Yeah, it is.
In your opinion, and speaking generally right now, not specifically about your organization, what are the main concerns, in your opinion, that CISOs nowadays have?
Wow, I think the main concern is losing control, right? And so, and I don't mean that to be from a control freak to say that we got to know about everything and everything's got to be open and visible to a CISO, but there are a lot of opportunities in not just specifically from an IT and infrastructure perspective, but even from the business standpoint. There's a lot of risk that organizations not built correctly can impose upon themselves by, let's say, the sales department going and adding an application they want to start using and not doing the proper vetting of the application, who the third party vendor is, that sort of thing. And that happens all the time, especially in a lot of the small, medium enterprise markets where maybe they don't have the right security operations in place, vendor management, third party risk review, secure DevOps, those sorts of things. A lot of things just kind of slide in from the sides, and it opens a lot of gaps. And so that's the part I think that concerns me the most, not only for my organization, but organizations that we support and that we come in and do incident response for, or we're helping do managed security for, is that it's difficult to control all the doors into the organization. And there's a lot of people that have keys to those doors. That's the piece that I think really, and for me, Ben, that goes to a lot of the things that I try to talk to our leadership team at OneSource, but also because I do a lot of advisement consulting, because we're an MSSP, to other businesses, to other CISOs, to other C-level executives, is really there's a behavior change that has to happen in an organization, right? You've got to be security conscious, and you've got to change your organization to start being security conscious to assist the CISO and the security teams to think about those things, right? The sales team has a valid ask. They've got a app they want to start using. We've got to transform the organization for that sales team to have security as at least one of the bullet points to check and make sure. You know, excuse me, for instance, does the application support multi-factor authentication, right? How are we going to authenticate to it? What are we going to use? What are we going to tie to it? And how is it going to allow users, both internal and external, access to our data and our infrastructure? Those are things that are challenging. It's a long road, but we in the US, I will say anyway, we don't have an appetite for it, and we're going to have to get an appetite for it. We're going to have to start and really, I guess the idea is educating our staff, our leadership, all the way up and down the chain to understand how important security is as an overlay to everything we do in the business.
And you mentioned, you know, too many doors. I would even argue that there are, you know, some hidden doors that you don't even know about, right? And and that leads me to my next question. You know, in your opinion, like, what skills does a CISO should have in order to, I mean, among other things, know about all the doors, all the hidden doors as well?
And that's one of the things too that say it may not be a myth for cybersecurity, but probably a myth for CISOs, is that we do know all those doors, and we have good understanding and insight into all those doors. As I mentioned before, software development's not my strong suit, right? Been in that space, done some of that, but I would not consider myself an expert there. I'd need to rely on members of my team and other people who have that skill set that can help assist me with understanding that hidden door, for instance. But yeah, I think the skill set, a CISO's got to be a lot of things. A CISO's got to be paranoid to a degree. I think that's an asset that, you know, doesn't need to drive you not to sleep at night, but just maybe paranoid is not the right word. Maybe suspicious is the right word, right? Just a healthy suspicion about what's going on within the business, I think is a key asset. I think another one is having the ability to relate to the business, right? So many times the CISOs have this directive or this edict about securing the business, but it does not have the context of what the business does tied to it. So I'm just going to say, you know, we're going to enforce multi-factor authentication on every one of our devices, mobile, servers, everything. And that may be the right step for the business, but they do it they do it in a silo, and it may actually hurt parts of the business, right? So there's got to be the understanding of the business and the business impact along with the security initiatives that overlay it. Too many times those things are separated, and you see a lot of struggles, or the worst thing that you can see is that security directives that are really needed get abandoned because the business gets frustrated. It's too complex, or it's too inconvenient, and we're not going to do it. And the CISO doesn't have the ability to compromise or to talk through why we're doing it and how the business can overcome those inconveniences they have, right? So that's a key. You got to be a negotiator to a degree as a CISO, and there's things that there's wins that you can get, and some wins that are just difficult to get. What you got to do then at that point is be a really good troubleshooter to go back and figure out how do we mitigate this risk to lower the risk as much as possible for the business. CISO's got to be pretty confident in what they're bringing to the table as well, because there are a lot of challenges that happen around the C-suite table, the leadership table, when suggestions are made that CISOs need to represent what the outcomes are going to be and present those in a way that makes sense to the rest of the leadership in the business overall. So once again, there may be things that myself as a CISO may tell our leadership team, we need to do these 3 things in order to lower our risk. And the pushback is, okay, we can do 2 of those things, but one of those things is going to add 15 minutes to our daily time of production of widgets. You know, give me the consequences if we don't do it. So I've got to be really confident in the understanding of what the technology is and the outcomes and how it affects the business in order to relate that to the rest of the leadership and make really good decisions across the board for the organization.
Yeah, I think throughout your answers today, there is an underlying theme of the assumption that the CISO is basically a business role for all intents and purposes. Now, in your opinion, and looking into the future, let's say 5 years, 10 years from now, where do you think the CISO role is going?
I think, at least this is my hope, I'll say it that way. I think organizations are becoming more aware and security conscious. I think the CISO role is becoming a more advisory type of role for the business. Someone who can talk about risk and risk mitigation. Someone who has who is a highly contributing member of the leadership and C-suite team, such that they're not brought in only when a breach occurs, right? I know organizations we've dealt with before where either the security operations leader or the CISO, whoever may be the top, tip of the spear for security for that business, is only brought in to have leadership discussions when a hack occurs, when a compromise occurs or a breach occurs. That's the only time they see them. And my hope is, and I think this is happening, that over the next 5 years, CISOs become more integrated into the business operations overall, right? So they're not just thought of as a hindrance to the business. They're thought of as an asset to the business in a way that we can grow our business. We can do more with our business, and we can do it in a secure way. And we can get ahead of some of those risks before they're realized on a business down the road. So that's where I think CISO role is going, and I'm hoping it's going that way. I think businesses will be in a much better place if they can adopt that methodology and that mindset. But 5 years is probably the right time frame, honestly. We've seen businesses who have gone through incidents that we've come in behind from, and they may have a really strong meeting with the security leaders there, have really strong security leaders. It's just the security leaders had no opportunity to provide feedback or input in how the business operations proceeded. So, if they can get a bigger or a more impactful role, it'll work out better for the organizations across the board.
Okay. Thank you for that. And so basically, an expansion or even a in other words, let me rephrase. What you're saying is that the fact that CISO is a business role will get solidified over the next period, like the period of the next 5 to 10 years, and would be regarded as a leadership position, regardless of the organization. In most organizations, the more mature one, and more organizations will go and become more mature in realizing that this is a core function that needed to be as part of any leadership team.
I think a metric for that, Ben, that we could track is the number of CISOs globally, right? And I say that because there are a lot of businesses, and I use the title CISO, as interchangeable. It could be VP of security. It could be someone who's got a role within the leadership team that is responsible and accountable to the security operations of an organization. I can't tell you how many businesses that we've been in where the security leader is also the IT leader, or the security leader is a CTO or a COO, and they just have been bolted on as a security person as well, because maybe there's an audit requirement or a other compliance requirement that has to happen, and it's just part of one of their daily functions they do quarterly to pull an audit report and spit it out. So they're the security leader. I think if the number of dedicated security leaders, that count goes up and continues to goes up, it's a good sign of what I just spoke about more businesses becoming security conscious and putting leadership roles based on security at the board table. That is a good sign to me, and I think we are going that way. It's still just quite a struggle, especially globally. There's other countries who are ahead of us, the U.S. in that space and that mindset, the thinking around that, and the U.S. is coming along, but slowly.
Okay, and we're almost out of our time today, but just out of curiosity, in your opinion, who would be those countries that are like ahead in the game that you just mentioned?
Well, I got to call out Israel, right? Israel is one of those countries that security is just kind of second nature to them, right? And that proceeds into the business world as well. You look at how many security vendors there are that originate from Israel. It's an amazing number, but they have a innate mindset there around security and protect and defend, and I think that bleeds into their business framework, business structure across the board. I would put them, they're far along in that space and that thinking on how that goes. I think I think probably Italy dealt with quite a few folks in the Italian space who it seems like are more or farther ahead of the U.S. around security consciousness and awareness. Those are two that I would point out probably, at least in my experience, to seem to be far ahead of where the U.S. is.
Got it. Thank you. And just to chime in here about Israel, so I think my personal opinion is that it is true that there are a lot of cyber startups in Israel, and as you said, cyber is more embedded into the way of doing things. I think that from a CISO perspective, CISOs have broader roles. I mean, the average CISO in the US has a much broader role than the ones in Israel. That's just, my opinion based on my expertise and, the years I've spent in the industry. But definitely, I mean, it's a cyber powerhouse. Moving on here, so we only have a couple more minutes left for our session today, unfortunately. Maybe we could, at some point schedule a follow-up podcast.
Sure.
Yeah. So just, just a couple of questions about vendors. What it is that you're looking for in a vendor, actually?
I'm looking for, in broad terms for a vendor, someone who will support the product or service that I'm consuming from them. It can't be a dump, you sell something, dump it, and then run away. I can't ever get a hold of somebody to support it. So I need to understand what support operations looks like for a vendor. I think the other thing is reputation in the security space. Reputation goes a long way. It could be, it could mean nothing, but reputation, and I don't just mean reputation from the Gartner Magic Quadrants perspective. I'm talking about reputation by going through some references and real world experiences with other clients or other customers that can give real feedback around how the product or service works, what the relationship tends to be like, and how responsive that vendor is when they're needed. We really look at vendor management and selecting vendors as a partnership. The goal should be, I think, for us anyway, we are a managed services company. So we're not selling a product directly to a customer and then never talking to them again until it needs to be renewed. We're selling monthly or recurring services to companies where there's a relationship built, and the idea should be that the success of our customers ties directly with our success, right? So if we can help make our customers successful, we're going to be successful. If we fail at making our customers successful, they're going to fail, and there's a tie there, a bond, a partnership. I look at that same thing for vendors, right? I need vendors who are willing to potentially put skin in the game, be a partner with me, look for my success to then build or fuel their success. And that's the way that we should think about the partnership. I am much less likely just to buy a widget from somebody than I am to buy a widget from somebody if they can help me make that widget work in my environment and do what I need to do.
Okay, clear. Final question before we wrap this up for today. If money was never an issue, would you do anything different with your life?
Wow, that's one out of left field. For me, for me, I've never been financially driven per se. So, everybody wants to make money, right? We all like to have money. But I don't know that because I love what I do. I am passionate about what I do. I love to help other companies and bring value. I love to help people who are interested in the space come along and be successful in the cyberspace themselves. I don't know that I would change a lot about it. I may have a different geographical location based on being able to afford to live somewhere differently. But outside of that, from a career or professional standpoint, I'm not sure I would do anything differently. I've enjoyed the trip. It has been an adventure, and it's been trying at times, but it's always been extremely rewarding. And I think that's really what fuels me from a satisfaction standpoint, is being able at the end of the day to feel like I've put in a solid day's work, and I've brought value to either someone internally on our team or externally one of our customers. That's kind of what makes me sleep well at night.
Well, can't say I'm too surprised with your answer here, but thank you nonetheless. Any final notes?
I don't think so. I appreciate the chance to speak with you, Ben. And like you said, if you follow up, or if somebody does need some assistance or advice or whatever they might need in that cyberspace, more than happy to help out and provide some mentorship or point them in the right direction if I can. Be more than willing to do so.
Much appreciated. So they should reach out to you over Twitter or LinkedIn?
Yeah, Twitter or LinkedIn. Twitter's @ProtectDefend. And LinkedIn is just, you can find me, Steve Cobb, on LinkedIn.
Got it. Okay. Thank you as well for your time today. It was a pleasure speaking with you. And yeah, we can definitely, talk in the near future, schedule up a follow-up episode at some point. And
sounds great.
Yeah, I like the answer and like the discussion. Enjoyed it a lot. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Have a great afternoon.
You too.